Hello, Captain Ethan Whitehall, Company D, 2nd United States Sharpshooters. Today's video we're going to be talking about officer swords, how to properly carry the sword, and the manual of arms for the officer's sword. A lot of reenactors that are officers you will see carry their sword. Once I get my straps hooked up, like this on their belt, hand on it, with a scabbard like this. The problem is when you're standing in line, your poor first sergeant or second sergeant filling in is going to be getting hit in the knuckles, the knees, the shins with the sword, and it's actually not the proper way to carry the sword. The proper way to carry the sword when it's in the scabbard and it is being carried on the belt, you take the sword and you just simply wrap the straps around once till you have a complete loop. Take your hanging hook or hanging loop onto the hanging hook, and it hangs just like this. This way you can keep full control of your sword while you're on the march, on the running, and also just staying in place. And there is plenty of photographs and original drawings, and also in manuals that the sword is carried exactly like this. And drawing it isn't difficult at all. You still grab it as such and draw just like you would any other plain Jane sword. The other way to carry the sword when it is in the scabbard, and this is especially true during route march, or route step during the march, or if you're actually just on a very long, 20-mile road march, things like that, over the shoulder. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You still maintain full control. It's still your badge of office, and you're not having to worry about it getting tangled up in your legs with the straps or anything like that. Now, to cover drawing the sword, there is actually manuals on how to properly draw the sword. However, commands are usually given too quickly, and there's never a draw swords command. But for the purposes of instruction, I'll go through the whole process. So, standing in line, you'll hear the command draw. You pull the sword 6 inches out from the scabbard. Swords, straight out, and then to the shoulder. And that is how to properly draw swords. However, you'll hear, attention company, attention battalion, and it's just, you automatically pull it out and just come to the shoulder. And that is the next part of the video, is how to properly carry the sword at shoulder arms. You'll see a lot of reenactors with swords, carry it like this or all the way up here, but the problem is you have people behind you, you have, muskets at shoulder arms or arms port, and if you have to turn, you're hitting the poor people next to you. I've actually almost been hit several times by officers carrying their swords like this. The closest actually grazed my hair right here, and if I was looking any farther over, it actually would have gotten into my eye. So it's also a cautionary thing for safety. So the proper way to carry the sword at shoulder arms, you take these 4 fingers, except for your pinky. You grab the grip of the sword with your pinky resting on the rear of the hilt, full length of the arm with a slight bend, and it's just like that. You will get a little bit of strain right here in your forearm, so you can nix holding the pinky like that and just hold the sword as such. And it's actually a lot more comfortable that way. I prefer actually this way. And there is plenty of period photographs of officers standing in line just like this at shoulder arms. The other very biggest misconception with the manual of the sword for officers is present arms. You'll see a lot of guys who throw their sword all the way out here like it's, 3 Musketeers, things like that. That's a very British way of doing it. However, we are reenacting the United States Army in the 1860s, and there was a completely different way to present arms. It's similar, however, not this whole extravagant, almost like a curtsy with a sword. And to do that, you go from shoulder arms, and it is present. Your arm is completely parallel with your body. The blade covers your right eye, arms, and it's dropped down almost directly in front of you. And a big reason for this, again, if you're standing in line, there's another company next to you, or if for some reason your line's a little wonky, you do this, you're going to be smacking people next to you in line. Their kneecaps, their shins. It's, again, one of those things, you wouldn't want to get hit in the kneecaps. Why would you want to be doing that with someone with a 2-pound piece of metal that could do some damage if you drop it down fast enough or with enough force. The fun part too with the sword is when you have your company standing at in place rest or rest. You'll see a lot of soldiers or officers carrying it, at the shoulder and the scabbard, Or there's other ways you can do it. A very period way of carrying the sword is just like this. You still maintain full control. It's still, the point is at a very safe angle. It's not jabbing anyone in the eyes, the face, neck, upper chest, anything like that. And as I said, you still maintain full control of your sword. The other way, personally, I prefer is just carrying it like this. There's a great photograph of a officer, I believe it was from a Zouave regiment, just holding a sword like this, waiting for probably the next orders to move his company or his regiment out. And again, you maintain full control of the sword this way. The point is covered by your hand, so there's no worry of tripping and accidentally, stabbing someone, digging it into the ground, because you do want to take care of your sword. This is your badge of office. You'll see officers with really rusty swords and stuff like that. So, take pride in your position of office, because becoming an officer and holding the position of an officer is really a great responsibility, and you want to show that you really take your role seriously. The other thing too with the sword that a lot of reenactors like to do, and we've covered this in our top 10 FARB videos, is you'll see officers on the march, by files right, by files left. It's not a turn signal. This isn't your blinker. Hopefully your soldiers should be able to know, oh, the line's going this way when they're marching in column. They shouldn't need to see an officer, pointing which way they're going. And it just looks silly, honestly. The other point I want to make about the officer swords is, yes, it's not sharp or anything like that, but this point can do a lot of damage. I've been nicked by officers carrying their swords improperly and everything like that. So please, for the sake of not only yourself, but the safety of your fellow reenactors, know how to carry your sword. This is Captain Ethan Whitehall, Company D, 2nd United States Sharpshooters. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.